The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky III could not exist without the previous two titles in the series, but I think it's my favorite one of them all.
Cry for me 君の声が聞こえてる叫んでる僕の名前を
Welcome back, everybody. My journey through the Trails in the Sky trilogy is finally complete, and what an incredible journey it really was. We started out as two young bracers, learning the ropes of working for the people of Liberl and the Zemurian continent, and are introduced to the power duo of Joshua and Estelle Bright. Then we're swept up into a massive conspiracy involving a powerful, continent-spanning secret organization called Ouroboros. Then we're a priest in the Septurian church hanging out at an airship going to a masquerade ball? Is that Vita Clotilde? Yes, Trails in the Sky III immediately has a different vibe than the previous two games. You're not Estelle Bright anymore. You're not working for the bracers. You're not going from town to town and helping people out and looking at the bulletin board anymore. In fact, this game is very different in that regard. You're Kevin Graham, who was previously just a supporting character in Sky SC, although he definitely did play a crucial role at the very end of the game. He didn't seem that important. In fact, a lot of things about this game that didn't seem important before, all of a sudden really are. The Church of Adios, all of a sudden, is playing a major role. Kevin's much more than a priest, though. He's a knight of the Gralsritter. Let me know in the comments below if I pronounced that correctly. Who is sent out on various missions for the church to investigate supernatural happenings involving powerful artifacts. Kevin comes into the possession of a mysterious cube that somehow transported him into a mysterious place called Phantasma, where he must fight through various planes and uncover the mystery behind the Lord of Phantasma and safely make his way home along with all of our friends that we've met so far. Now, this game primarily has you playing as characters that you've already learned to know and love or hate, perhaps, but you're also introduced to Kevin's squire, Reese, a longtime friend and ally who at the beginning of the game is carrying a very heavy burden. In fact, you see both Kevin and Reese shouldering a ton of frustration and unresolved problems that are uncovered as the game continues. The first part of the game sees you exploring all of these planes where everything seems out of place, and finding these motes of light that bring our heroes from the previous titles into Phantasma to fight alongside Kevin and Reese. And that's where the game really begins to heavily separate itself from the previous titles. These aren't just ghosts or summons, they're the real characters who you adventured with in the previous game. Now, you're probably wondering why I said at the beginning that I think that this might be my favorite in the trilogy, and honestly, it's a combination of factors that really help this game resonate with me. First, I love how our protagonists are swept up in a story and adventure that has a definitive conclusion. As I mentioned in my second chapter review, I was so tired of Ouroboros being this undefeatable enigma that keeps dragging the plot forward through their nefarious deeds. Even though in second chapter, we certainly laid the smackdown on the main bad guys, there was very little closure. Estelle and Joshua headed off to continue their adventure, while everyone else hurried on to various responsibilities, and there's still this sense of tension that never really went away. Sky III, in many respects, is a side story, kind of, that has a very definitive conclusion. You see significant character growth for multiple party members, along with a gut-wrenching story that had me hooked. There was none of this, you won the battle, but you didn't win the war feeling. This bittersweet episode had a definitive beginning and a definitive end with all of the characters that I've grown to love over the last year. And the best part, they were able to do this while massively expanding the backstories, and continuing subplots, including setting up not only the stories from Trails from Zero and to Azure, but also Cold Steel. The foreshadowing in this game is great, and even as someone who has already played Cold Steel 1 and 2, I absolutely love to see bits of the story unfold from another perspective. One of the gameplay elements and experiences in Phantasma is coming across these various doors. Most of the doors give you a playable or watchable side story, while others have some mini games thrown in for you to complete. All the doors, unless it was one purely based on overcoming a combat trial, expanded the lore of the Zemurian continent as a whole, but most importantly, the characters that we've grown to love. Some of these doors that give you flashback gameplay sequences really fleshed out the story and helped you understand the characters even more. Tita, Chloe, Josette, Joshua, Estelle, Olivier, or, Prince Olivert. All of them have doors, some of them multiple doors, each of them giving further insight to their stories. Chloe's story in particular was especially eye-opening. These little vignettes, some of them just a few minutes long, others over an hour, are important must-sees for any Legend of Heroes fan so that you can more fully understand these characters. All the doors give various rewards, mostly in the form of Mira and accessories, or Sepith, but each of them are unique in what they offer. You're not retreading any ground here. Every story is fresh and new and helps you appreciate what the series is trying to accomplish, even though you are revisiting a lot of places that you've already been. However, these are new stories, you're even introduced to new characters at this point. So even though, yes, you're heading back to Zeiss or you're heading back to Gransel, it's all places with new people and new stories to get to know, and that makes it fine. Again, none of this could exist without the previous two games, but Neon Falcon have proved that they understand fully how to make a sequel better than the previous game. In Sky the Third, you're given a lot of flexibility in who you bring with you. You almost always have Kevin or Reese in your party, but beyond that, you can do whatever combos you like. Want to go for all-out damage? Go for it. Lots of arts and AoEs? That's fine too. In fact, the game encourages experimentation so much that whenever you select your party, it gives you a random option to fill in the vacant slots. Once you have unlocked at least 5 party members, you have the 5th member in reserve back at your base, the Hermit's Garden. And that 5th character gives you random buffs to help out your active party, and they can be changed out with different buffs depending on what you're looking for. Instead of sticking with Kevin, Reese, Joshua, and Estelle, I did actually change things up, finding different party combinations I enjoyed. Speaking of the Hermit's Garden, this hub world is where all your characters hang out when not out exploring the plains of Phantasma. I really love how simple they made this hub world. Everything you needed from crafting to cooking was all right there for you at your fingertips. They did a great job of making you aware of when you really ought to consider upgrading your characters, upgrading their equipment before continuing. This was the first time where I actually had to grind for Sepith to exchange for money to buy equipment, but it was fine. The battles in Sky the Third haven't changed from SC or FC really at all. It's the same system, but you do get to take it to the next level as their crafts, which are your character's unique special abilities, are significantly upgraded as you level up in the game. Personally, I found the combat in Sky the Third to be the most challenging and the rewarding, as the monster balance was really incredible on the normal difficulty. You go up against some of the toughest characters in the Sky Trilogy, multiple bosses at once, and plenty of other unique surprises I don't want to spoil. The turn-based battle system is functioning at peak level, and your characters feel incredibly powerful, despite sometimes being overwhelmed by tough enemies. There is one thing about Sky the Third's battle system that I think gives a unique twist. Kevin has a defensive S-craft called Grail Sphere that allows him to put up a barrier that deflects the next attack on all characters that it was cast on. You can be guaranteed that in the more difficult boss battles where Kevin is a required member, you need to use it. Yes, I don't love those team wipe abilities, and honestly, it never was a complete game over until the final few bosses. but Kevin's defensive and healing skills against the demons and devils in Phantasma are very much so needed for a great experience. What makes this interesting is that you hardly ever see a buff or healer role as your main protagonist. So the pacing in this game is all over the place. In fact, it's kind of crazy. Those doors that I've been talking about that you can go into to visit and get these various experiences, some of the doors have these really short stories to tell. Some of them take well over an hour if you explore everything. While you have the main goal of exploring the various planes of Phantasma and figuring out who the Lord of Phantasma is, these doors can take you off on all these various adventures that last, it just depends on how fast you go through it, which door it is. Some of them you actually play through and there's combat inside of them as you learn a little bit more about a particular character. Some of them have different mini games to experience, and some of them you just sit back and press A as the dialogue goes through as you're told a story. All of them are incredible, in my opinion at least. Oftentimes, you will not meet the requirements to go into a door upon first discovering it, but you can just choose it from a list and teleport back there anytime you want once you can meet those requirements. Theoretically, you could play through the main plot of the game without venturing inside a single one, but that wouldn't be advised or very fun because you truly miss the best part of the game, learning about all the characters. Yes, Kevin and Rhys' story is the highlight of the game, but these doors made me care more about the characters that I already cared so much about, and genuinely helped me learn to understand characters that I really wasn't resonating with before. And that's why I think this game shines. The best battling, the best story exposition, and just spending more time with these characters in a unique story and a unique circumstance made Sky the Third mean so much to me. It put finishing touches on an experience that I never will forget. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about Sky the Third. I just can't wait for the Crossbell arc. So excited that they're finally localizing them and bringing them to console and PC. See you in the next video.